I'd like to call the business meeting for November 27th to order, please. Could I have a roll call attendance by the secretary, please?
Klett.
Present.
Guard.
Present.
Larson.
Present.
Charles.
Present.
Wong.
Here.
Okay, could I have an approval of the agenda, please?
I move approval of the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Approval of the agenda is made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now we have a student with us from Converse Elementary School, Holton Westcott. Holton, are you here to help us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Would you like to come up and stand here up front by the flag and please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Halton. Okay. Now we have announcements. Who's reading our announcements tonight?
I am reading those announcements.
Mr. Wong, thank you.
Bear with me. There's a long list I was just given here. Okay. The November 27th board announcements. Here are the upcoming events. It's concert season, so there are many to the list. On Tuesday, December 4th, Aldridge and Fruzen Intermediate are holding a joint fall orchestra concert at Fruzen at 7 p.m. On Wednesday, December 5th, Gaston is holding their first Grade 1 Winter Sing at 5:30 p.m. and their Grade 3 Winter Sing at 6:30 p.m. On Friday, December 7th, there is a blood drive at Beloit at Memorial High School from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Drop-off for the Hackett Bazaar is from 3 to 6 p.m. On Saturday, December 8th, Aldridge Intermediate is hosting its second annual Holiday Bazaar and a family giveaway from 8 a.m. till noon. Drop-off for the Hackett Bazaar is from 12:30 to 5 p.m. On Monday, December 10th, is the final day for the Toys for Tots drop-off at the Memorial High School. Hackett Elementary is hosting their annual Hackett Bazaar from 4 to 6 p.m., and McNeil Intermediate has their winter orchestra concerts for grades 5 and 6 at 6 p.m. On Tuesday, December 11th, Todd Elementary is holding its Grade 1 concert called The Big Chill, hoping for a snow day at 5:30 p.m., and a Grade 3 concert called the Paint the Town December at 6:30 p.m. McNeil Intermediate has their winter band concert for grades 7 and 8 at 6 p.m. Thursday, December 13th, Converse Elementary is hosting a winter sing for 4K students and their parents at 9:30 a.m. and a winter sing for the 4K and grade 1 at 1 p.m. Also on December 13th, Aldridge Intermediate is having their choir concert at 7 p.m. On Sunday, December 16th, Memorial High School is hosting their winter band concert at 7 p.m. On Monday, December 17th, McNeil Intermediate has their winter choir concert for grades 5 and 6 at 6 p.m., and Memorial High School is holding their holiday choir concert at 7 p.m. On Tuesday, almost done here. On Tuesday, December 18th, Fruzen Intermediate will have their winter band concert and orchestra concert at 1 p.m. Hackett Elementary is holding their winter sing at People's Church. McNeil Intermediate has their winter choir concert for grades 7 and 8 at 6 p.m., and Memorial High School has their winter orchestra concert at 7 p.m. On Thursday, December 20th, Gaston Elementary has their 4K winter sing at 2 p.m. Robinson Elementary is hosting a 4K winter concert from 2 to 2:30 p.m. Aldridge is hosting 2 band and choir orchestra concerts, grade 5 and 6, is at 5:30 p.m., while grades 7 and 8 is at 7 p.m. On Friday, December 21st, Gaston is having its 4th annual read-in from 8:20 to 10:20 a.m. They would like to personally invite board members to visit their school and read a book aloud to a group of students. Also, on the 21st, Merrill Elementary is hosting their 4K Winter Sing at 9 a.m. Please note there is no school for students on December 14th, as it is a personal development day for all staff district-wide. There is no school for students and teachers on Monday, December 24th to Tuesday, January 1st. Classes will resume on Wednesday, January 2nd. The Colac Educational Center will be closed to the public over this time and will reopen on Wednesday, January 2nd. This ends the announcements.
Well, thank you, Mr.
Wow.
Okay, and now we're at recognitions with Mr. Brian Bissers presenting. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President and Board of Education members, and also to those listening online or on our cable channel. First of all, I'd like to recognize all of the students who did a wonderful job helping organize the Kids Against Hunger event. So if any of you that are here want to come up right now, you come up and we will recognize you. All right, first we have Gloria Heiss. Gloria. Then we have Hannah Wilson. Deep Patel. Elizabeth Sage. Stephanie Hernandez Barales. Benjamin Levy. Nishani Patel. And Morgan Weathers. And like I said, these are the students who helped organize the event along with Mr. Wong. And it was just a spectacular event. Next, I don't believe I saw him come in, and you can't really miss him because he's usually the biggest student in the room. We have Matthew Wettig. He was named All-State Football. Matt, a senior at Memorial High School, was named First-Team All-State Outside Linebacker Large Schools by the Wisconsin Football Coaches Association. Matthew, who received several scholarship offers, will be playing football for Illinois State Redbirds beginning this coming summer. I'll make sure that we get this to Matt. Then we have Julie Horvath. Julie, a Spanish language teacher, has received the 2018 WAFLT Recognition of Merit Award, and that stands for Wisconsin Association of Language Teachers. This award is presented on an annual basis to individuals who have demonstrated excellence in teaching or those who have made significant contributions to the language teaching profession. In addition to teaching Spanish at Memorial High School, Ms. Horvath is also the World Language Department Chair and the Bilingual Programs Liaison for high schools in our district. She received a Bachelor's of Science degree in secondary education, emphasizing in Spanish at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and a Master's of Science degree in education for professional development from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. And if that's not enough, in 2010, she earned a master's degree in Spanish language and cultures from the University of Salamanca in Spain. She is an active member of the Committee for Professional Development with the Wisconsin Association for Language Teachers. Congratulations. All right, next we have the theater department. So if you want to come up here, please do so. And this crew of fine young students, they just finished their performance of The Government Inspector at the state meet in La Crosse, and they received the following awards at the state meet. First of all, they were all state. They were Outstanding Crew, Outstanding Ensemble. And then Outstanding Lead went to Dayton Felt and Evan Langone. And Outstanding Support Actor went to Leilani Schaller. So they really received and cleaned up a lot of awards there. Let me just make sure. Okay. And here are all of your awards. All right. And then Hannah Wilson, if you want to come up one more time. Oh, sorry. So anyway, Hannah has been named a 2019 Coca-Cola Scholarship semifinalist. She is one of nearly 1,900 students nationwide who were selected from over 95,000 submitted applications from across the country to continue through the selection process. They are currently submitting their semifinalist applications to be reviewed by our program reading committee in January. After this review, 250 semifinalists will advance as regional finalists, with 150 becoming Coca-Cola scholars. So that's a pretty good honor right there. And that concludes all of the recognitions for this evening.
Sorry, I think Mr. Wong would like to say a few words.
Yeah, I had the opportunity, distinct opportunity to work with the National Honor Society kids, and I'd just like to thank them for all their hard work. But there's one unsung hero that wasn't here tonight and wasn't recognized, and I'd like to make that be known. Matt Flynn did a wonderful job of organizing these kids. And then who's the other teacher that helped out? Yeah, so there was a couple of other people that weren't very involved in that. Yeah, yeah, what she said. But a lot of people don't realize that the kids actually raised over $20,000 in about a 3-month period of time, and they learned a lot of different skills that they probably would never learn in standard classes. This is something we've done. We did it several years ago, and hopefully it was a lot of fun for the kids. They got to do public speaking. They got to write grants. And they were challenged by some individuals at the Hendricks Family Foundation to actually have a multiple number of go out to reach out to other schools to have them involved in the Kids Against Hunger event. For those of you that were there, it's a cool event. I've done several of those of that size, and to see the amount of people in one setting. But more importantly, I think that was really cool is that it was probably the first time ever in the history of the Janesville and Beloit schools to see Janesville, Parker, Craig, Turner, and Rock County Christian School there working together. So congratulations to all of you kids. Great job.
And before you all leave, I would like to say, Mr. Wong, thank you for bringing that event to us. It wouldn't have happened without you. Everyone did a great job, but we really want to thank you for getting our kids and all these schools and all the community involved in that. You made it happen, and we appreciate it. And Ms. Horvath, I just want to say congratulations. Thank you for your dedication to excellence in what you do every day. And congratulations on your recognition. And Mr. Wallendahl, thank you for everything you do for these kids. All of you, I know, did a great job up at that state competition. Wouldn't be possible without such a dedicated teacher. So we appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. Okay, and now we have the time for public comments. I'll wait for the room to clear just a little bit and then ask, is there anyone here who would like to address the board or the public tonight? Okay, I don't see anyone, so I won't read this speech here, and we can move on then to superintendent's presentations to the board. Mr. Bonds.
Good evening, everyone. So it gives us an opportunity to share a little bit of information related to our district performance, as well as all the great things that we're doing. And I want you to remember what you just witnessed with, regarding all of the recognitions as we go through our school report cards, because at the end of the day, our students are more than just test scores. While we strive for excellence, they're more than just test scores. So just remember that as we share our district performance and the things we are doing to make improvements for our students. I'm going to turn over to Mrs. Cheney, who is the Director of Data and Assessment and Professional Development, and she's going to start off, and then I'm going to join her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonds. Good evening. Like Mr. Bonds said, I will be sharing with you our data from the report cards that just was released earlier this month, so the beginning of November. And I'll share that information with you. Basically, the purpose of our report card is it's an accountability system. All public schools have it, charter schools as well. And data is taken on different assessments that we take. There are 4 priority areas. Those priority areas are student achievement, student growth, closing gaps, and then the last category is on track and post-secondary readiness. But there's 5 overall accountability ratings, which is significantly exceeds expectations, exceeds expectations, meets expectations, meets few expectations, and then fails to meet expectations. And each one of those categories will be represented by stars. There is a variable weighting, so schools that have a high population of students that are economically disadvantaged, we look at the student growth versus achievement, and then vice versa. So if there was a district that had very low students that are economically disadvantaged, then they would be rated based on their achievement. And so because we have a high population, we are scored based on our student growth, and they use the 35% or higher, and I think we're like in the 80s. So this is a comparison of our last year's report card. This is the district level report card. Each school also gets their own individual report card, but today I'll speak specifically to the district report card. That the one on the left shows the report card from last year. Our overall score was 61.9, which meets few expectations, and that is considered a 2-star. And our score for this year is a 60.1, so we went down just a little bit. Again, that is 2-star. We're considered a 2-star district. And as you can see, there's circled there the 4 priority areas that I just discussed earlier: student achievement, student growth, closing gaps, and then on track and post-secondary readiness. This is an overall look at, as a district, the number of schools that we have in each one of the categories. So for this year, we had 1 school that exceeded expectations, 3 schools that met expectations, 5 schools that met few expectations, and 2 schools that failed to meet expectations. We also have our 3 alternate accountabilities. Those schools are not rated in the same category, so that would be Beloit Learning Academy RCAA, and then Beloit Virtual School. So they don't use the same rating as the traditional schools. But as you can see, those schools also fall into the satisfactory progress according to the rating for them. So again, these are just the 4 priority areas, and the next couple of slides are just those broken down. These are our overall scores in each one of those categories. Student achievement, we had 39.2 out of 100, and they look at our ELA and our math, and that's based on the state assessments, so ACT, Forward, and it's just a combination of all of those, and that's how we receive our scores. And then district growth, 44.2 out of 100, closing gaps, 71.8, and then on track and post-secondary readiness, 81.2. So I'll show you on this slide. The next couple of slides, like I said, is just I'll just break down each one of the categories, but you can see the subcomponents under each of those priority areas. Like I said, student achievement is ELA and math. Same thing for district growth. And then closing gaps, they look at ELA, math, and then also the graduation rate gaps. And then on track and post secondary readiness, they take a look at our graduation rate, our attendance rate, and then third grade English, and then eighth grade math, and that's how they calculate the scores. So for student achievement, this slide here is just broken down by all of the our demographic groups that we have here, and it's a comparison of the last 3 years. And so I highlighted the last section there, which is the report card that we're looking at. And overall, as you can see, for all students, it's about 19.7%, and that is proficient in advanced. So those two scores combined is representing proficient in advanced. And then it has each group broken down there. That was ELA, and the same thing for math. And then we'll take a look at student growth. Again, for student growth, they'll take a look at students from year to year. They'll take a population of students, look at their performance, and then look and see how they performed over the next 3 years, and that's how they determine student growth. Closing gaps, we're looking at, with the closing gaps, they look at specific groups. And so it's not the all students category. So if you take a look up here, you won't see all students. You'll only see the subgroups. And what they do is take a look at those students, kind of give a guess or an estimate as how they think those students will perform, and then look at the actual performance and compare that to students across the state. And then that's how they determine and calculate the points given for that category. And that was English language arts. The next one is math. And then this is closing gaps for graduation rate. They look at multiple years, obviously, to see if our graduation rate is increasing. And if it is increasing, then obviously we get more points. If it is not decreasing or not increasing, then we don't get an amount of points. And this one is actually looking at 4 years. And then this one is a 6-year score. So they do take a look at a couple of different cohorts to see the change in growth. Again, on track and post-secondary readiness, we look at third grade ELA and eighth grade math. They take a population, a group of students, and kind of track them and see how their attendance is. And again, looking at the graduation rates, and they follow the same group of students from the third grade to the eighth grade and see how they perform. So then student engagement, basically this is our test participation. We had 95% or more. If you have 95% or more, you get 5-point deduction. If you have below that, then you get a 10-point deduction. And then absenteeism, they look at 1 and 3 year rates and look at the number of students that are chronically absent, and then they look at the number of dropouts, and then all of those things combined, and they'll come up with a score for this category. And as you can see here, we met our goals in those areas, the absenteeism rate and the dropout rate. And so our goals, the two goals there, we met those two goals. This is just an overall look at all of the schools and how they perform, their overall scores. Right next to it, you'll see a little arrow, and that arrow is either going up or down, and that just shows you, it's just saying from last year to this year if that school improved or went down. And we do want to congratulate Robinson on being a school that exceeds expectations. And then we did have quite a few schools that increased, which was Gaston. They went up significantly. They actually moved from meets few expectations to actually now meeting expectations. So congratulations to Gaston. Hackett improved, and there's a school that meets expectations. Memorial increased. Merrill, although they're failing to meet expectations, we did see a significant increase. So we want to say congratulations to Merrill on that. And then our alternative schools for staying in the satisfactory category. As far as our areas of strength, we did see an increase in our American Indian Alaskan population in ELA. They went from a 23.8 to 31.6. Also, the same population in math increased from 23.8 to 31.6. Our Asian population increased from 52% proficient advanced to 53.9. And then our Black group increased in math from 7.1 proficient advanced to 8.6. So we do want to recognize that. And then for our areas of opportunity, obviously we want to increase in the areas of ELA and math. We want to continue to close that achievement gap for our African American and Hispanic students, and then also get more of our schools in the category of meets expectations. And I believe Anthony is going to come up and share with you some of our initiatives that we're doing to address some of these concerns that we see here.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to give a little context to the picture that you are taking a look at. So I joined the district roughly 3.5 years ago. One of the things that I understood right away was that not only was Beloit a place where there was a significant amount of pride, but there also was definite opportunities that existed and definite potential that existed in the district. But this is a picture of me when I first walked in, thinking about all of the stuff that was going on. And you see the arrows going to all different places. There was a new superintendent that was on board. There was leadership change, not only at the district level, but at several schools. The student performance was lower than it is now. There was a ton of teacher turnover. Teacher morale was not in a good place. There was a lack of district resources in some areas, and a lack of curriculum, to name a few. The challenge was definitely present, but we were up to it. Since then, my team, and others have been really committed to aligning all the resources to focus on student achievement and student learning. One of the things that I did right away was to change actually the title. At first, it was the Department for Curriculum Instruction. One of the things I wanted to do was to get the community to start thinking about teaching, learning, and innovation, to always have that be the focus. Because it truly, in my mind, based on a lot of things I was noticing, that truly was not there. So I've been steadfast focused on that, my team and I, as well as a lot of others. To make improvements, there were 4 areas we started looking at. First of all, you can always look at curriculum instruction, looking at the standards, materials, the resources, the programs and structures, taking a look at the instructional quality, make sure there was professional development for teachers, leaders, and staff. Focused on targeted supports for students, such as providing tutoring, interventions, enrichments, and supports. And definitely focusing on how do we engage our families and community members to support our schools and outreach to them in terms of mentoring, internships, and partnerships. So those were the 4 key areas that we started to take a look at. If you take a look at all of our district school improvement plans, you will see these 4 areas, and they are all aligned. You will see a focus on academic achievement, which focuses on improving reading, math, and all instruction in all content areas. It focuses on, again, parents, family, and community engagement. It focuses on leadership and instructional capacity and learning environment. Here's a very brief list of some of the initiatives that are underway and have been implemented over the last 3 years and moving forward. We have, again, set strategic goals in reading, math, learning environment, teacher and principal leadership, focused on family and community engagement. We are providing collaboration time for teachers and staff through our PLC Wednesdays. We're implementing new rigorous math and science programs. We're providing professional development for all staff in all content areas. We're providing professional development for all staff around culturally responsive practices. We're implementing the academy model at BMHS. We're implementing AVID, a new study skills and support program at BMHS and now at the 4 intermediate schools. ACT prep is being provided for our juniors. We're providing after-school enrichment programming in all schools for students. We're ramping up and supporting our bilingual programming, and we have extended our summer school programming over the years as well. Last year, we had a 20% increase in our summer school participation, and there are a lot of other initiatives that are underway. You have had a chance over the last couple of months to hear school improvement plans from our principals. Tonight you will hear additional school improvement plans, and I ask you to listen for the details on how schools are addressing the areas and making improvements. This year in our department, we are focused on these three areas: high expectations, high accountability, and high support for students and staff. Our students are more than just test scores. As a district, we must truly define what success looks like for our school district. If you think about what was shared again through the recognitions this afternoon, as well as some of the items that have been identified in the newspaper as of late, we're a community that built a house, our students, that is. We have a number of students who receive perfect scores on the ACT. There are a lot of accomplishments in our district that go unrecognized in a significant way, that gets overlooked, that we have to make sure we, as a district, we must find ways to celebrate, encourage, and support our students and our staff. Questions?
Anthony, yes, there are a lot of things to celebrate in our school system, and we don't take enough, I think, time to look at the positive. But there's also a lot of things that need improvement. And when I look at the individual schools, congratulations to Robinson for being where they're at in Converse. And I look at the rest of the schools and I wonder, are we looking at what is Robinson and Converse doing that the others are not doing? And how do we get those other schools to get to that level? Because obviously some good things are happening there, and those are models we should be building on. And I'm all about data and the things you're talking about we're going to do, and accountability. And really, I'm hoping that at the end, this time next year, we're having a conversation about the data and what improvements we did make. How do we measure them? Where do we do well and where do we not? But going back to my original statement, I'm really interested in the Robinson Converse story and how we're going to emulate that.
Okay, thank you. And tonight you will hear actually from both principals, coincidentally. And so they will be able to share a lot of details. But to answer your question directly, yes, we take the opportunities during our principal meetings to have conversation regarding what schools are doing successfully. Principals, not only do they meet with us as administrators, but they also meet amongst themselves in peer groups to discuss the things that they are implementing in their buildings and the successes that they are having and the challenges that they're having, and problem solving together. So that's how we're learning from those schools. In addition to that, we are spent significant resources on individuals attending conferences and attending model schools to learn from other schools that are very similar to our district. And so those are the things that we're doing to see what others are doing with similar demographics to make improvements in student performance and outcomes for students.
Yes.
Two other things. I'd be interested in, when you talk about we go to other, we travel, look at other models and things, the information that comes back from there and how we actually use that information. We send people away. And then more importantly, is Converse success really because my brother Benji teaches there?
The principal is saying, yes, it is.
Any other, Nora?
I just would like to say thank you to you, Anthony, for your diligence and your focus. I remember some of those milestones or challenges that you met head on, and you were truly focused. And I think you and your team have done a wonderful job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wong?
Anthony, I was curious to know if we look outside of our district and we go to other communities or other districts that have similar demographics to us. I know there's not a ton of them, but whether it's in other states or throughout the state of Wisconsin, and try to determine, okay, there's some things that they're doing, what's their best practices, to determine if there's some things that we can bring back to our district.
So yes, those are some of the things I mentioned before. We are have had opportunities to visit other model districts that are having success with similar demographics, and we are continuing to explore those districts and visit them and bring back those strategies and see if there's something that we can replicate here. Sometimes you will go to different states and some things are not things that we can replicate, but there are definitely things that they're doing that they're having success with that we can definitely implement here. And so we're always researching, we're always exploring other models.
One other thing, you talked about accountability, and I guess, we put up there, and I know that we have all these goals. It's usually on a percentage basis. It would be very helpful, I think, for us and for future boards to have that information and have it reported back to us so they know exactly how each school did as far as their various scores and test scores that they have for each school. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Bonds, I have a question. This one demographic is really alarming, students with disabilities. Can you tell us, just because this is televised, I'd like people to know, what type of disabilities are we talking about here?
I would like to call up Ms. Peltz, who would be able to give us some more details on.
And then what I wanted to know is there a way to compare this with the state? Because this is our lowest performing group in math and language arts, lower than any other demographic. Is there a way to tell how the rest of the state is doing? Because I don't see that here. Maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see it here.
Yes, we have access to a ton of data that we can make those comparisons and with other districts throughout the state, and so we do that all the time.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. So all students that are identified with disabilities are required to take the state assessment just as our regular education students. Our students with the most significant cognitive disabilities or intellectual disabilities participate in a separate assessment called the DLM, but those results are also factored in.
Okay, so I see there hasn't been a lot of change over the past 3 years. It's pretty steady, but I would think that's something we really need to look at, is because when disabilities can be, what's the most minor disability you can think of that would be in this group?
I mean, all disabilities are represented. So speech and, it can be speech and language, learning disabilities, other health impairment, emotional behavioral disabilities, hearing impairment, visual impairment, all students.
So it's a broad range of disabilities in a large group of kids.
Absolutely.
The performance is just really, I think we need to look at that.
I agree.
I would agree with that statement, and I would also say that it's something that the state needs to really wrestle with, because there's an expectation for even students with disabilities, regardless of their disability, to participate on these exams. And again, only the ones with really, truly significant cognitive delays are receiving the alternate assessment. The others, we do our very best to support them in being successful in an exam. But it's a challenge and a stretch for them. So if you had a chance to take a look at the state data, you will see very similar performance levels for those students.
So we're not far off from the state?
Not in that area. I would venture to guess. I don't want to misspeak, so.
Okay, so maybe if you can give us that information at a later time,
yes,
that
we
would
will.
be appreciated. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding this report? Okay. So now we will move on.
As I indicated earlier, one of the things that we have truly taken advantage of and expanded is our bilingual programming, specifically our dual language programming. Our director, Anthony Bosco, is going to share some information regarding our dual language programming as well as our bilingual programming. Mr. Bosco.
Good evening. I'm just going to airplay here real quick. Buenas noches, me llamo señor Vasco y soy el director de los programas bilingües para el Distrito Escolar de Beloit. Gracias por la oportunidad de compartir información con la Junta de Educación y nuestra comunidad sobre nuestro programa bilingüe aquí en el Distrito Escolar de Beloit. Que todos los que quieren ser bilingües Es parte de la visión del distrito escolar para preparar nuestros estudiantes para un mundo diverso y multilingüe, y los programas bilingües son importantes para alcanzar esta meta. Don't worry, I'm not going to do the rest of it in Spanish. Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to be here to discuss progress in the Department of Bilingual Programs. When we look at the mission statement for bilingual programs, it's important to kind of focus on a couple of terms in particular. Biliteracy, multiculturalism, multilingualism. Multiculturalism is something that the school district of Beloit has as its foundation. Biliteracy is something that over the course of the last couple of decades maybe has really started to gain steam educationally across the nation in terms of of an opportunity to close achievement gaps and really help students achieve at different levels. Within the school district of Beloit's Department of Bilingual Programs, we kind of have four focus areas. The first one is our family school partnerships. We have a very robust K through 12 English language learner program, our dual language immersion program that goes from pre-K to 6, and then our world language programs, which start in 6th grade and culminate at the high school level. All of these are focused on helping our students develop skills, biliteracy skills, cultural skills, that will prepare them to earn the Global Education Achievement Certificate, which we currently offer students, and eventually during the 1920 school year, the Seal of Biliteracy, which is a Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction recognized award. Family engagement. Mr. Tulio Duran, who's here with us this evening, and myself have really spearheaded a very strategic, very concerted family engagement program that focuses on a smaller group of parents called the Grupo de Enfoque de Padres y Madres. And I don't. If I go between English and Spanish, I apologize. We also have Todos Unidos, which is our parent university group. Both of these groups meet on a monthly basis with the idea that we use the smaller parent focus group to get information, input about things that the school district of Beloit could do better, both at the building and at the district level, classroom level. And then we also have Todos Unidos, which is kind of our parent university activity where we do a presentation on dual language, or a couple of weeks ago we did a presentation on how to use Skyward. In December, we're going to team with Mitch Briesmeister to do a presentation on our career technology education program. And then in January, we're going to partner with Blackhawk Tech to show how the articulation between the high school and Blackhawk Tech looks. All of this is in Spanish, so that our families, because the thing that we hear over and over and over again is that we don't know, we need more information. And we're really trying to get it to them at the ground level so that they can engage with their children in a very, very hands-on way. Moving on to dual language, we have currently 663 students enrolled in dual language pre-K through 6th grade. Almost half of our students in DLI are ELL students, English language learners. That's typical for DLI programs across the country. Dual language immersion programs are becoming kind of an English language learner service model. Students who are English language learners who may be newcomers, maybe level 1, level 2, level 3 students, have access to literacy programming both in their native language and in their second language, because the research is very clear over time now that using a student's first language will help them develop second language acquisition. That's a complete mind shift in this field, and it's something that we're taking on full force. And that's really going to, as we talk about closing achievement gaps and really expressing ourselves from this program in our part in addressing some of our achievement issues, this is something that we really believe in and the research supports. Our dual language immersion model is a two-way 50-50 split, so half of our day theoretically is in English, half of our day is in Spanish. English literacy and mathematics and then Spanish literacy, science and social studies are in Spanish. This is pretty consistent in 50-50 models. There are other models, but this is where we're at, and the research supports the development of literacy over time using this model. This is my kind of second year as the director of the program, and I like to go to conferences. I love to learn, and I love to bring those things back. And invariably, it's like my wife sends me to the store. I shouldn't bring too much back because there are only so many cupboards to put the stuff in. But with dual language, it's very exciting because when you talk to other people in other districts that are doing this and doing it well, they're very innovative. And Anthony talks about teaching, learning, innovation, and I think we really need to get kind of use that as a focus for our decision making at times. Currently, our intermediate DLI programs, the intermediate DLI teachers teach all content areas, and that can be a struggle for a teacher from Spain who's expected to come to the United States, teach English, math and English, teach English literacy. So over the next fall, we're going to change that so that our 4 or 5 teacher teaches Spanish across 2 grade levels, and the other teacher teaches English across 2 grade levels. Additionally, this is going to help us not need as many Spanish teachers as the program matriculates through the intermediate, which is a benefit because it's very hard to recruit bilingual teachers right now. One of the other things is I talk to other DLI directors or bilingual program directors, they talk about is how is that secondary program taking shape. And one of the things that I'm very, very excited about is the idea that our students in DLI are really being kind of pushed in a direction or with the expectation of developing language at a much higher level than just a monolingual English class. When you look at research about dual language, second language acquisition, and you talk about especially a base in Romantic languages like Spanish, Italian, etc., you take ACT tests and other kinds of standardized assessments, that base really helps achievement on those kinds of tests. With that in mind, the articulation of our dual language program through the intermediate, focusing on some AP, pre-AP offerings at the 8th grade level, 7th grade level, is an exciting thing that we're going to be exploring over the next couple of months. With the idea that as students move toward the Global Education Achievement Certificate and the Seal of Biliteracy, they've really developed language skills, second language skills that are as strong, if not stronger, than their first language skills. So what about the data? This is in your packet. This is data on reading and math, comparing our DLI, dual language immersion students with our non-DLI students. And you can see that in every area in both reading and math, except for 1, 5th grade. This is our fall data, that the DLI students are scoring higher than the monolingual students. That's both in reading and math, which is somewhat contrary to the expectation in terms of if you're acquiring a second language, that progress should be a little bit slower. But in our district, we're able to kind of address that a little bit differently. Our progress is pretty exciting, actually. So we have family engagement, dual language immersion. Now we're going to talk about our English as a second language program. Currently in the school district Beloit, there are 7 different languages being spoken either in school or at home. English, Spanish, French, Mao, Hmong, Chinese, Arabic. I didn't know if everybody knew that or not, but I wanted to say it publicly because it's an interesting fact to me that we have that kind of language diversity here in the school district Beloit. But any of those students who are learning English as a second language, that's determined first when they enroll via what's called a home language survey, which flags a student to be screened, and then based on that screener is what determines whether or not they're an English language learner. And then annually, and we're about to start our access tests on Monday, they're expected to take an English proficiency exam, and that puts the students at different levels, 1 through 6, which you can see on the slide, of English proficiency, with the idea that at some point they'll attain a 5, which is proficient, and they can exit the program after 2 years of successful monitoring. We talk about our ELL data, and it's important to keep ELL and DLI separate because within the DLI program, only about 47%, as I said, are ELL students. There are 673 DLI students, so less than half are ELL students. And we only have DLI through 6th grade. So the vast majority of our ELL students are in what's called content-based instruction. So they're in their regular language arts classes, the regular math classes, etc. And when you look at the data for our ELL students versus non-ELL students, while they are behind. Research shows that for a student who has a strong first language foundation, you expect 5 to 7 years before they attain proficiency in their second language. If they're solid, if their foundation isn't as solid, it could be 7 to 10 years. And you can see in this and then another slide that we're making pretty good progress in that area. Another piece of data that we wanted to show is the idea of what our ELL students in DLI schools are achieving and what our ELL students in non-DLI schools are achieving. And you can see there is a difference between the ELL students in our monolingual schools and the ELL students in our dual language schools. And in every case, at every grade level, the DLI schools are performing a little bit better as far as map reading achievement. Now, that isn't to say that there isn't a gap. When we talk about the trajectory of biliteracy over time in a 50-50 model, students are not expected to achieve proficiency until about 7th, 8th, 9th grade because you're splitting half of your literacy time between two different languages. The other thing that you see with this is as students that are ELL are taking the access test, you have that 5 to 7 year window. And in this slide, you can see how as students get to about 6th grade, the numbers of our ELL students drops pretty significantly. And that's because that 5 to 7 year window that it takes to develop that proficiency, we're coming out of that window. Then we also have to analyze why are some of those students at the upper intermediate and high school level staying long-term ELLs. And we're going to do that by addressing some freshman, sophomore programming at the high school and also looking at how the DLI program moving up into 7th and 8th grade is going to help that as well. Shifting to world languages, I found it very interesting when I started looking at course requests for world languages. It is, we have currently this school year 735 students in Spanish, intermediate through high school, 275 students in French, 78 students in what's called a heritage language class, a Spanish for Spanish speakers class. All of those numbers plus DLI really focus on us helping students exit our system, move on to college career readiness, being bilingual. How many of us in this room right now can speak more than one language? Okay. The idea that as a job seeker, as someone entering the workforce, that you are bilingual, that has an automatic kind of connotation to it in terms of what you would bring to that employer. And in our community and communities all over the country, multilingualism is an important resource. And when you think about the United States and how monolinguistic we can be compared to the rest of the world, this is important for Beloit to understand and for us to continue to develop. But ultimately, all of that is focusing on not only having students being bilingual, but also with a focus. When students leave the school district Beloit, we want them to have an advantage applying to colleges and being bilingual, biliterate, and having a seal of biliteracy or a global education achievement certificate sets those students apart. Some outcomes for our bilingual programs. We're currently in a partnership with UW Oshkosh on dual credit. We have 12 students in Spanish 4, 17 Spanish 5. Last year, we had 16 out of 17 students earn AP credit in Spanish. Over time, our dual language program is going to grow these numbers. And that's something that I think we're very excited about in the department because as students enter upper intermediate and high school, they're going to want and need those Spanish 5 classes at a much earlier time in their academic careers. And so those numbers are really going to grow over the next several years, which is very, very exciting. So to close, some next steps. We're looking to expand biliteracy at the elementary level. When we look at the data, it's very clear that this program, the opportunity for our students to learn 2 languages in one classroom really does help achievement. And so we're looking to expand that. We're going to be growing dual language into the intermediate, getting ready for high school. We're looking at a Spanish curriculum review because we haven't looked at Spanish curricula since the late 2000s. And the idea that we've had DLI now for 7 years, but we haven't addressed Spanish curricula, we need to address that. So we're going to be working on that shortly. The idea of those 7th and 8th grade pre-AP, AP Spanish language courses as a possibility for how that looks in the upper intermediate, continuing to analyze programming for our ELL students. The growth is positive, but again, achievement gap-wise, we still have a lot of work to do. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
I just wish I could speak Spanish.
We are going to start a conversational Spanish group every other Friday at Dita's about 6:30 if you're interested. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Yep.
Ross.
Oh, sorry.
Ms. Guard.
I didn't quite catch it, but I thought you said in the elementary schools you're going to have 2 grades together, like second and third. Could you explain to me the splitting of
Yep.
those?
So right now at the elementary level in Todd, Robinson, Hackett, you at first grade you have an English DLI and a Spanish DLI teacher. That's a pair. That will stay that way. Elementary we're not going to mess with. When we get to intermediate school, the 4th grade intermediate teacher at Aldrich, for instance, teaches Spanish literacy, English literacy, math and English, science and Spanish, social studies and Spanish. So we're going to make that a 4-5 team where the Spanish teacher teaches the Spanish literacy, the science, social studies, and Spanish 4th and 5th, and then that person's partner would teach English and math 4th and 5th. So that's how and that's going to ultimately, instead of needing 3 DLI Spanish teachers next year, I'm only going to need 2, which is a beautiful thing because they're very hard to find.
Yes, they are. Thank you.
Other questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Muscat.
thank you.
Now we have our annual discipline, administrative hearing, and expulsion report with Ms. Pels.
Sorry. Where's my present button? Okay. Good evening. I am here to present our 2017-18 school year end of year discipline, administrative hearing, and expulsion data. Okay, and so the first few slides are a series of graphs that depict different graphs indicating our office referral data. So this is the data that is actually entered into the Skyward system that tracks discipline referrals for schools. And this graph specifically shows our end of the year referrals by month. So if you look at the graph, you can see that we have peaks and valleys, which is very natural. Our highest peaks are in October and May. October is a time where students are settling in. The honeymoon period is kind of over, so we do kind of see a spike in behavior at that point in time. And then May, kids are ending the school year. They're getting antsy. They're ready to go, so we also see spikes in behavior at that time. But one thing we do with our administrators and our PBIS teams is really teach them to analyze their school's data, determine what might root causes in the peaks and valleys be so that they can put the appropriate supports in place to address the issues. This next graph depicts the number of referrals per student. So the green represents students who have received just one referral. The yellow is students who've received 2 to 5 referrals throughout the school year, and then the red is 6 or more. The goal is to have 80% of our student population fall within that green section. That would be considered our universal section. And so this is what the triangle would look like if we had 80% of our students in that universal section of the triangle. So in theory, you want 80 to 90% of your students in that green, that universal tier 1. That means that they're pretty much performing as they should be in most settings. The yellow section is roughly 5 to 15%. That's your tier 2 or your targeted section. That's where some students are at risk. They might need more individualized supports, small group interventions, rapid response interventions, and then that top tier is the red tier. That should be about 1 to 5% of your students where they really need some intensive interventions. And sometimes we might need to reach out to outside agencies to help support those students. Okay, this shows end of the year referrals by grade. You can see that first grade has a high amount of office discipline referrals. That's something we're still looking into. We're not really sure why. Ninth grade is a transition year. It's also the most highly populated class at the high school. So it's not surprising that there is a higher amount of referrals there. Typically ninth graders are getting used to new expectations because they're in a new environment. They're becoming acclimated to our environment, and oftentimes they need a little bit more support than the rest of the high school grades do. Okay, so this is a 3-year comparison of referrals by grade. And generally speaking, we see the amount of referrals going up. And so part of that could be that for the past 3 years, there's really been an awareness on student behavior. And as a response, the district has put an emphasis on teaching and applying the code of conduct. As a result, more referrals have been generated at the school level. There has also been a really large focus on district entering data into our systems accurately and clean. So because we've had this emphasis on entering data, specifically discipline data, schools have been forced to abandon their internal systems for tracking behavior because they've all been required to put it into Skyward. And that's fairly new within the last 3 years. This shows end of the year district referrals by school, with BMHS as the highest school with the most amount of referrals. Again, that's the most highly populated school, so that makes sense. And this shows a 3-year comparison of referrals by school. Very similar trends as we saw the 3-year comparison by grade. And this graph depicts office discipline referrals by offense type. So that blue bar indicates level 1 offense. Those are your lowest level offenses. Level 2 is the yellow bar. Level 3 is the green bar. And at the end, level 4 is the yellow bar. The graph below shows the top 3 offenses per yellow, or per level. So level 1, the top 3 are minor classroom disruption, minor disrespect, and insubordination. The top 3 for level 2 are major disrespect, insubordination or open defiance, and physical altercation. The top 3 for level 3 are fighting, repeated insubordination, and serious repeated misconduct. And the top 2 for level 4 are aggressive physical contact with staff and dangerous weapons. This graph shows types of referral actions taken. So what kinds of, consequences or disciplinary action are administrators using to address different behavioral issues. And the top 3 are intervention, out-of-school suspension, and counseling. This graph shows disproportionality in different subgroups of students in discipline, it's been historical that we've struggled with disproportionality in our African American population and in our students with disabilities population. Okay, now moving on to administrative hearings. This graph shows administrative hearings held by school. So last year, 85 students were referred for administrative hearings. This number reflects the total number of hearings held, which is 67. Sometimes hearing requests are canceled, which is why there's discrepancy there, why it's not It's not the 85, it shows the 67. Hearing requests are canceled for a number of different reasons. The most prominent reason is because the behavior was found to be a manifestation of a student with a disability. That's a process that is required by law to go through if a student is going to go through the hearing process. A team has to convene and discuss the behavior and the student's disability and if it was directly related or not. And then sometimes hearings are pulled, for example, by building principals, if the end result of the hearing was going to be a voluntary agreement or an alternative placement, something like that they've just handled at the school level instead of through the hearing process. Because the hearing process isn't always just utilized if we're going towards expulsion. Sometimes it's used as a way to alternatively place or put a voluntary agreement in place. Some students are referred for hearings more than once in a school year also due to violating a voluntary agreement or reoffending the code of conduct after returning from an expulsion or an alternative placement. This is the number of administrative hearings by disability status. And so regular education students are going through the administrative hearing process more than students with disabilities are. And again, part of that might be the manifestation process that's in place for students with disabilities. This graph shows administrative hearing outcomes by school. So the dark blue is a return to school. The orange is a return to school with a voluntary agreement. The gray is an alternative placement. The yellow is an alternative placement with a voluntary agreement, and the light blue is expulsion. There were 19 expulsion hearings held last year. One was void after the student qualified for special education services, and 2 were dismissed by the hearing officer based on new evidence that was presented at the time of the hearing. 16 students were expelled, and 11 of those students had no prior involvement in the administrative hearing or expulsion hearing process. This is the number of hearings by gender, and as you can see, male students are referred for hearings more often than female students are. And then this shows the number of administrative hearings and expulsions by race and ethnicity. As you can see, our African American population is indicated at the highest level here, which correlates with our disproportionality. And this is expulsions by violation. So students are being expelled the most for assault or fighting or physical aggression. And then actually right behind that is aggressive physical contact with staff. So trends in the 17-18 data are that administrative hearings decreased by 9% from the previous year. Expulsion hearings decreased by 30% from the previous year. Alternative placements stayed consistent with the previous year, and the number of students that were returned to school was only one more than the previous year, but the percentage was higher due to fewer administrative hearings. And then concerns that our administrative hearing officer has expressed is placement at Beloit Virtual School is not necessarily successful. Kids can struggle in that placement due to a variety of reasons. Sometimes it has to do with reading ability. Sometimes it has to do with peer motivation to do independent work, those types of issues. And then that there's a lack in alternative programming for students in grades 4 and 5. Our alternative programming in the district begins at grade 6. Some of the things that the school district of Beloit are doing to address behavioral issues. This year was the very first year that we implemented behavioral specialists at the 6 elementary schools. So right now it's kind of preliminary to tell how that will impact our discipline data, but we have received qualitative data and all of the principals have indicated that they're very appreciative of having a behavioral specialist there working with them, and that they are doing a really great job at providing supports to students and teachers in their schools, that it's making a difference. A strong focus on implementing our universal SEL curriculum, which we use Second Step here in the district, with fidelity in grades 4K through 8. We provide opportunities for staff to be trained in trauma, restorative practices, culturally responsive practices, classroom management, de-escalation, and youth mental health first aid. Those are trainings that we have offered over the past 3 years or so we're continuing with that. We recently formed an ad hoc committee on student governance. This committee is looking at our current code of conduct and will be making some recommendations for improvement. Each school improvement plan is required to have a learning environment goal, as Mr. Bonds had stated before in his presentation. Also, every educator is required to set an annual learning environment professional practice goal. We've expanded school-based mental health services. We've expanded Beloit Health System services to BLA. So they have an office at BLA. Actually, it's just getting started up, and so they'll be up and running very shortly if they haven't already. We've expanded services from Hope Family Counseling. Hope is providing services in 5 of our schools now, so that is a great partnership. And then we've also partnered with the Department of Human Services. They provide some case management to some of our students and provide the opportunity, if necessary, to be involved in small group interventions and things like that. There is a district-wide emphasis on behavioral related data. So we are collecting different types of data and really using that to, assess our school climates and culture so that we can put the appropriate supports in place to improve our climate and culture in our schools. We have our alternative to suspension program at the Merrill Community Center, and then we've expanded our therapeutic classrooms. So we've gone to from two to now having 4 classrooms in the district. And now I will entertain any questions that there might be. I pulled from that document and put into this presentation, but I'm happy to answer questions on that document.
Mr. Larson had his hand up first, so go ahead, please.
When I was looking at the data for each grade level, do you follow the students as a cohort that, the 7th graders this year over the past few years?
So the 3-year, you can follow as a cohort. So yes, we do, and we have that ability. Yes. So this comparison by grade. So for example, if you look at last year's 9th graders, you can see their referral numbers as 8th graders and from 7th graders.
Okay.
I have just a couple more. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So on the action taken, interventions is the largest by far. Where can you give some examples of the interventions that would be happening at the schools?
Yes. So intervention is used for 2 different things. I'm just trying to find that slide, but maybe I won't be able to right away. Okay. So intervention could be like a counseling, or it is if a student spends less than half of a day in an in-school suspension. And the reason why it is coded that way is for state reporting purposes.
Last one. I'm interested to hear more about how the behavior specialists are working in the schools and how they're supporting the students and staff.
Okay. And I hope that my principals here will be talking about that, but they are providing coaching to teachers. They work individually with high-need students. They run support groups for students. They do reteaching in social emotional skills. They lead the PBIS efforts in the building. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of things, but that is in general kind of an overview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Klitt, did you have one?
I've got several. First, a comment. I was an ex-school board member for 3 years. I've been on this board for 4 months. I've had more people, teachers, principals, and parents come up to me complaining about the lack of discipline in our schools, especially at the elementary school, and complaining that hearings are being subsided because they're being tracked as to not doing their job. When I look at the School of Excellence, which was Robinson, was one of them, I think they had a pretty good correlation of administrative hearings. But I looked at the data from 2015 to 2017, and our hearings dropped from 116 to 42. Now, that's a huge drop in 1 year to go and say all of a sudden everybody got better. But it also coincides with the last 3 years with loss of staff and students open enrolling out of our school system. So there seems to be a pattern that the district, according to those that work in it and the front line that are complaining, that there's a lack of discipline and support from certain administrative people because the emphasis is to look the other way, to make our numbers look better. And when I look at this and the loss of staff and students, and I look at our test scores actually went down last year, not a lot, but so there's a correlation to me that our discipline policies are not working.
And one of the things I had mentioned previously in the presentation is the formation of the ad hoc committee that's looking at student governance. And that ad hoc committee is charged with just everything you were explaining, to look at the code of conduct and the policies that we have written in how we address student behavior and make recommendations on how to improve it. Specifically, you referenced the elementary school, and one of the concerns out there is that there's not 2 different code of conducts or guidance documents for the levels, which may not be developmentally appropriate. So one of the recommendations I expect would be that there would be a separate document for elementary versus secondary.
Ms. Gard?
Actually, that was going to be my question, is whether or not the ad hoc committee was looking at maybe having a slight difference with the two levels of misconduct. So you answered that one, thank you. But I'm also curious, you said that there are 4 therapeutic classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me where they are?
Mm-hmm. So Todd has a therapeutic classroom, Fruzen, McNeil, and the high school.
I have a question for you, Ms. Pels. So we have 2 elementary schools that don't have identical but similar demographics. One has 168 referrals, one has 1,532. What are your thoughts on that?
The 2 elementary schools, correct? Is that what you said? Yes. I think that, honestly, I think it's just the way in which referrals are entered at the school.
Entered, or the way
entered
they're handled?
Entered. So historically, at elementary schools, teachers haven't always actually entered referrals into the system, and that's slowly changing. And so the school that has that very high number that you were referencing, their teachers are entering referrals into Skyward. So if they have a student that misbehaves in the classroom, for example, they'll enter it into Skyward right away.
Okay, so so each school could be different depending on how the teachers are entering it into Skyward.
It could be, and yes, and the PBIS systems that are in place. So, in theory, classroom managed behaviors shouldn't be going to the office, but because we're working through these systems, in some places they are.
Well, that's why I'm wondering about this number, because I've been hearing what you just said, but it's hard for us to tell if they're being done correctly if one school's entering them, one school's not.
And part of that is us as district administrators really pressing upon that we need your data in Skyward. We need it to be clean. We need it to be accurate. So we've been putting a lot of pressure on, and just so working through that has, probably come out in the data.
Okay, and you said that 2 hearings were canceled by our hearing officer, by the board's hearing officer. You mean 2 expulsion hearings?
I believe they were. I believe that they got to the level where they were in front of the actual expulsion hearing officer, so Mr. Holland. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, that's where the decision was made, because new evidence was presented while they were in that process.
Okay, and the only reason I wanted to talk about this just for a second is because I think sometimes as a board, when we hear expulsions, when we are presented the expulsions and we vote on them, it seems like they all come to us,
Oh.
And we hire these people to do the work of the expulsion hearing, and so it's nice to know that sometimes they aren't expelled. Mm-hmm. We don't hear those in that room. We just hear the ones that are. So I just wanted the board to notice that it's not always an expulsion.
Yeah, and Lori Medina is actually seeing or hearing way more hearings because she sees the administrative hearings. So not all districts have that pre-expulsion process in place. We do. Mm-hmm. So that's another point in time where she's making a decision on what moves forward, or what intervention do we need to put in place.
She has input through the whole process.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other, Mr. Wong?
Just a comment about the ad hoc committee, because I think that it's been brought up a few different times. One of my 3 meetings tonight was actually the first ad hoc meeting for the intermediate schools in regards to the student discipline and governance. I can report back in the hour that I was there. It was a very productive meeting. It's great to have staff on board, and their insight is very useful. There was also a parent in the meeting, but people from all over the intermediate schools. So I think we have to be patient with this. I know that the numbers do not look good. This is something that I personally brought up probably 2 years ago. And some of the questions are, why wasn't it brought up? But at this point, we do have some movement going in that direction, and I'm hopeful that Dr. Childs and or myself will have more to report in the next few months here.
Thank you. Mr. Klett.
I need to apologize and make a correction. I identified Robinson on the hearing numbers. That wasn't Robinson. So my apologies to Robinson if you're in the room. I misspoke on that data. But I'm looking forward to it. But I know you're trying to make some improvements, and I'm looking forward to it because the data clearly indicates it's not working right now.
Okay, anything else? All right. Thank you, Ms. Pels. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. And now we have our school improvement plans to be presented. Mr. Bonds again?
Yep, so, but we're going to bring up both principals from BLA, Tina Gex and Betsy Schroeder.
Oops, I'm going solo. All right now. It's all right. She's with me in spirit. Hello. Thank you for inviting me. It is an honor to stand before you on behalf of the Beloit Learning Academy, and I'm proud to share the following information with you all. So BLA is the school district of Beloit's alternative school, as you know, and we serve students in grades 6 through 12. The majority of our students have been identified as at risk of not graduating from high school. Not all of them, but the majority have. Per Wisconsin DPI, the types of students that are served in an alternative education program include students who have poor attendance, failing grades, maybe a family crisis, maybe they were referred to but did not qualify for special ed, may have social, emotional, or medical issues, could be free, reduced lunch, below average performance on assessments, discipline problems, drug and alcohol issues, criminal behavior, poor peer relationships, or maybe they're just anxious and they need a smaller environment. Maybe the big school is just too much. So additionally, in the Wisconsin statute, that also includes pregnant and parenting teens or adjudicated delinquents. So all of our students at Beloit Learning Academy, or the majority of them, meet at least 2 or more of the at-risk criteria as identified by Wisconsin DPI. So how does a student become at risk? There are risk-producing conditions that can be barriers to a student's development and learning. So they can have environmental variables or they can have personal variables that can impact their learning in the school environment. Could be their neighborhood, some of the things they experience on the streets, violence, drugs, crime, gangs, whatever. Could be family, could be chronic poverty, maybe substance abuse, models of problem behavior. So many different things. Homelessness, a lot of homelessness. Could be just overall attendance. A lot of our kids struggle with attendance. So we get phone calls from families who have not had their students in school for a very long time, and they're finally feeling we need to get our kids in school. You'd be surprised at how many kids are out there at home who are not attending school at all. So they come in, they have very low academic abilities. Maybe their experience previously was bad in another school, maybe bad experiences with teachers, bad experiences maybe with their peers, or having inappropriate peer relationships. Some of our kids have personal things that they come to school with. Maybe they have a health condition, medical problems, low birth weight, maybe a neurodevelopmental delay, difficult temperament, adjustment problems, inadequate nutrition. Maybe they have English language challenges or just learning and mental disorders. It's really quite amazing what some of our kids come to the table with without any choice of their own. They didn't ask for it. So it's pretty interesting. In our school alone, we've got 67 homeless students. That's 30% of our population. And then we've got 18 students that are on juvenile probation, and 3 of our students are on adult probation. So what do? For us, when a student is recommended to us or calls us and is interested in our school, the BLA staff meets one-to-one with every single student and family. We have a comprehensive intake. We sit down with every student, with every family, and we really talk about who this student is, what their needs are, where they're at, try to the best of our ability, determine what kind of program would be the best for them. So what can we offer in the school district of Beloit? So at the Beloit Learning Academy, at the Wright Building, we offer 9th through 12th grade alternative high school. In that high school, we offer math, English, science, social studies, and an elective. Every student is connected to an advisory. So they are grade level advisors, so every student is known. Every student is purposefully connected to somebody, so that person will track. All students are tracked by all of the staff in our building. We have 132 students that are in the high school. Then we have 2 6th through 8th grade alternative classrooms that offer core and enrichment. One of those classrooms is a self-contained special education classroom. The second classroom is for students who are alternatively placed in lieu of expulsion, or the IEP team at their intermediate school has identified that they may need a different environment to be successful. So we have one classroom for those students. We also, so there's 15 students in the 6th through 8th grade classrooms. We have a GED Option 2 program that is a 12th grade alternative graduation pathway. Currently has 27 students. We can have 2 sessions at 15 for each session, so we're just about maxed out for that. And then we offer a Tier 3 math and ELA intervention in the afternoons, and we've got approximately 15 students in each of those interventions. And then our expulsion program is held after school, and currently we have 5 students that are expelled from the school district who are attending in our after-school program. Also on site, we offer the Beloit virtual program, which is managed and monitored by the Beloit Learning Academy staff. So the following programs are offered by the School District of Beloit, but they are monitored and supported by BLA and our staff, but the students actually access their work off-site. We have a teen parent program, which is at the Head Start building. That is 8 students. We have the Fresh Start, which is at the Beloit Community Action. It's the youth build. They have 27 students. And Challenge Academy has 11 students. That's in Fort McCoy. And then we have HSED students that are doing, it's like the GED Option 2. They're doing that at Black Hawk Tech, and we have 3 students that are enrolled in that. So that's 49 students off-site and 179 students who are on-site. So what is our mission for us? We need to know our students well. Every single student that is in our building, we need to know them to the best of our ability. And we need to identify the barriers to their learning, and we need to work as a team to do everything that we can to remediate those barriers and to hopefully engage or re-engage our students to their learning. So some of the things that we did well last year, I'm just going to go through this briefly. I'm going to highlight a couple of these. In the area of math, 50% of the students who met their MAP growth goals. That's actually the national average for MAP growth goal meeting. In literacy, 78% of our students met their MAP growth goals. And these are students who had taken the winter, I believe it's the fall to spring, and they had been there for 70% of the time. Their attendance showed us 70% of the time. In our learning environment, we had 144 students who came to BLA through the 2017-2018 school year for the purpose of graduation, and 128 of those 144 students did graduate with the class of 2018. 16 out of the 144 did not graduate, but 7 out of those 16 we are currently working with, and they do have a plan to graduate. On that note, the Beloit Learning Academy does finishes up or works all the way through with about a third of the graduating class of Beloit Memorial High School. A third of them end up somehow finishing through an alternative program or are with an alternative program through the duration of their high school years. So, also some progress that we had made last year is that when the math increase and the literacy increase, the math increase was about 9 point on the RIT score increase. That's a pretty significant increase in a MAP score, especially for high school students, because generally you only looked about 1 to 2 points. So the average increase of our math gain was 9 points, and the average increase of our literacy gain was 8 points. We also did see an ACT increase in math and in English. Math, we went up 3%, and English was just a little bit, but we hope to see more of that this next year, especially in the area of writing. So some of the areas for growth, we do definitely want to reduce our math and English course failures, and we want to increase our ACT in the area of math and English, and as I said, especially in the area of writing. And then we do want to decrease our behavioral referrals, increase our average daily attendance. That's very, very, very important to us. Last year, our attendance rate was 69%. term one. This year, our attendance rate, term one, was 79%. So already, we've already increased that attendance, average daily attendance rate. So the goals for this upcoming year is to increase our percentage of grade outcomes to reflect C and above. Last year, overall, in math, 61% of our grades were C's and above. I can say term one, we had the exact same 61% of our grades were C and above in the area of math. In the area of literacy, though, last year, all of our grades showed that 40% of our grades were C and above. This year, term one, we already showed 53% of our English grades were a C and above. And as it shows on here also, we do want to increase our ACT scores, especially in the area of writing. So let me see where I've got this at. Okay. We are really, for our learning environment, we are really focusing our attention on our behaviors, our interventions, and supports. We're really trying to get to the function of the behavior. Why are the kids doing what they're doing? You know, what is going on with this young man or this young woman that causes them to behave in the way that they do? And then also focused attention on our accurate attendance. We found that as we really dug through our data last year, some of the data wasn't so much that the students weren't attending. It was not reporting appropriately or it wasn't recording appropriately. It's kind of interesting principles. I don't know if you look on WiseDash, but if you look on WiseDash and you pull up your attendance data, you can pull out a list of the students in every grade level. I found that there were students that were listed that we had never even seen before. So it's kind of interesting how if a student is in your district and for whatever reason they drop, if they are not picked up by another district, we are still responsible for them. And it shows on our data. So we're really trying to dig deeply into our WiseDash, compare our WiseDash to the Skyward so that we can have a more accurate attendance report. So for our learning environment, those are some of the things that we're focusing on. We also are really designating some planning time with our advisors to be on the same page as far as our social emotional lessons, our PBIS lessons that are based on the data that we're seeing, and then making sure that we're really teaching the academic career planning consistently, all staff, all the same lessons. So a few strategies, just going to highlight a few of them for this year. We are working closely with Beloit Memorial High School, and we have adopted the same literacy initiative as they have. So we have went to the high school. We have a focused professional development and partnership with Beloit Memorial High School in support of literacy, because we too have implemented a school-wide literacy program with the intense focus on reading and writing. Already this year, our students have written about over 300 AWPs. So that's really cool. And it's very fun to walk around and to see all of these kids writing, and then the teachers' conversations afterwards about the things that the students have written. And it's pretty neat to see all of them writing like that. So we are really excited to see the gains, especially on those kids that have done that each term. How many have you done so far? Yeah, they're doing it though, aren't they? Yeah, they're doing it. Then also the consistent recognition and appreciation of staff. Those who labor among you are the most important. I mean, our team is so important, and we really take the time to value each other, to care for one another, to support one another, to empower one another. I mean, that's very, very important to us, and we meet twice a month as a staff, and we circle up together. We write cards of recognition to each other. We do shout-outs towards one another. It's a very close and supportive staff. And then I would say we have very strong professional learning communities at BLA. We are always in a PLC. This staff is in love with their students. We are consistently talking about our kids, what they need, what can we do better, how can we better support them, where are the resources or who can we tap into that we can bring them in or we can learn something different so we can better support our kids. We are not staff who talks about our kids derogatorily, like, I don't know if I said that. We are a staff who talks about our kids so that we can figure them out, so that we can help them. It's like our mission, and we love it, and I think we do a really nice job at that. So some of the professional learning for this school year, certainly working with the school district of Beloit when the professional development is offered, and then with the high school. And then we were so lucky that Beloit Learning Academy staff was able to attend a conference for 2 days. It's called the Children Come First Conference. At that conference, over 45 workshops are offered that all There was a bunch of kids there that were telling their personal stories, looking at school through their lenses. Students who had grown up in environments and conditions that we couldn't even imagine. And these students were saying what it felt like to be them in school, being treated the way they were treated by their classmates, by their teachers, by the community, and how they felt. And then they were sharing their reaction to what that treatment was like to them. It was really extraordinary. And the workshops were just so relevant on so many different topics that all of our staff was able, really benefited from. At the end, they had the kids came and they were talking to us. With just a whole bunch of a group of kids came and were talking to the staff about what they needed from staff. And just to hear things from their perspective, it was really pretty neat. And one of the things that I really took away from that is how important it is to really hear from the students. We think we have all the answers for our kids. I'm going to tell you what, you guys, these kids have the answers. They're the future, and the answers are inside of them. And we've got to take the time to get to know who these kids are, what it is that they need, what it is that they have to say, and really listen and really do our best to honor their wishes, because what they're saying is right on. And the strategies that they're presenting to us, one of the things they kept saying is, teachers, slow down, because the teachers would go so quick through instruction and they'd get lost, especially the special ed kids. The special ed kids would say, we're not dumb. We just need you to slow down. We need you to take time with us. It was really, really beautiful. So for our family and community engagement, beginning of the year before school even started, we went door to door to every single student in our building that was on our rosters. So all of the advisors had their list of kids. We had a map to where all of those kids lived. It gave every staff member an opportunity to go all throughout this community and go to every single house of every single kid that was going to be coming to us on day one. So what we did then is we scheduled meetings on day one. So all of us had face-to-face meetings with our students in the school, which included all their data. So it was their average daily attendance, it was their behavioral data, it was their credit data, it was their academic history data. So we could sit down with every single kid and say, this was you. This is what you're coming to us with, and this is what you need to do to get here. And we set goals up with every single family and every single student in our school. And that was a beautiful way to start the year off. And then throughout the year, every quarter, every parent-teacher conference, we meet again. We schedule meetings one-to-one with every single student. And that's a great thing to do. We give positive phone calls, postcards, messages, recognitions. I mean, we're a family, and we treat each other well. We have an open door policy, so you're always welcome, any of you. I know, shut my off. Sorry. Anyways, you guys know, you read the data. I don't care. I love talking about my school. So if you have any questions, I guess don't have time. Come on, just kidding. So are there any questions?
Are there any questions from anyone? Mr. Larson? No? Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you, Ms. Gax.
You're welcome.
I mean, you really care about those kids,
Yes.
that's obvious.
Yes.
And you're doing good things.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
We in love. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Vicki Hamilton. I'm the principal of Converse Elementary. Thank you. And Benji was my first co-partner. Well, I was his first co-partner, and I was his mentor as well. Tina does do a great job. I really have to commend her and her staff. They are awesome with what they do, and I, as a parent, really do appreciate you guys. This year for Converse, our staff started off the school year with the walk around the neighborhood to introduce ourselves to our neighboring families. It was a successful day. We walked from door to door, knocking on doors, saying hi, who we were, and all the people that were there came out. They were so excited. They hugged us. They said, "Oh, we love you guys. We're so glad you came. I can't believe you're out here in the heat." They offered us water, and it was really a successful day. Within the first 2 months of our school, we focused on behavior in our entire building by addressing PBIS early in the beginning. For those necessary students, we bring them to sit, and our team discuss with the parent, if the parent has to be there, what we need to do to make sure that that student is successful throughout the rest of the school year. Addressing these issues early, we are able to then focus on the learning in our classroom. Our behavior specialist, who Emily was talking about earlier, she is awesome. She has implemented several positive practices, such as the kindness cookie, for kindness that cannot be overlooked for those students who are the teachers pick and they come down and they take pictures and they're given a cookie and they're just so excited. And they are put on our dojo, Converse Dojo. She also has turned herself into, on Friday, Captain Compassion, and that started with our Bully Awareness Month. Converse is also using a socialgram that was built by her, or brought by her, that detects those students who may be new to our school or displaying trouble finding a friend at school or on the playground. This tool helps to assist them with finding a friend. She started the socialgram in 2nd grade, and she has continued it throughout our building. In addition, she has focused on obtaining resources to assist our students and families in the following ways. We provide food for the students to take home in their backpacks for those students who parents have expressed a need for food over the weekend when their students are not at school to have lunch. We also have clothing and hygiene products that she has gotten from Donors Choose. We are also working on creating a positive learning environment, the whole staff, by addressing students and their families' social and emotional needs. In conclusion, literacy and math at Converse is being addressed daily by the teachers. And in addition to the reading specialist, we have a reading interventionist and a math interventionist. The math interventionist is full-time. Any questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, now we have our, I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter. Robinson School. Yay.
So, our vision is to be a school recognition and choice for the state line area on a yearly basis, collaboratively providing our students outstanding instruction in an environment that supports academic social growth. We developed our mission statement years ago. This is my 11th year at Robinson Elementary School. And it's been a pleasure to work with outstanding teachers and with an outstanding community. I've enjoyed all of the last 11 years. Some of our strengths, school recognition by DPI last year, PBS, Bronze Medal Award, continued academic growth in math and literacy. And although we do, we appreciate that exceeds expectations, I'm more proud that we've had 3 years of sustained growth, which is very difficult to do in high poverty schools. So not that I didn't sleep very well at night when the report cards came out, but I am more proud that the growth that teachers and students have made with those 3 years. Success is 1.6% increase in literacy, 12.7% increase in math, and PBIS Bronze Award. Areas for growth, we looked at some of the strands: number sense, measurement, geometry, algebraic expressions, literacy, informational text, comprehension, learning environment. Our goal is to reduce suspensions. So our goals this year are increasing our MAP, Ready for Instruction Today scores by 15 points by spring. Our family engagement, sharing data, encouraging families to volunteer. Our teachers have a goal of trying to get somebody connected with each student, 30 minutes in the classroom per semester, per student. Also engaging our parents and support by taking our family nights. So maybe it's the Halloween night, but we're talking about reading the strategies when we read with the students, with the parents. So we are using those events when we have parents there to get them on board and give them ideas how they can help at home, because we need all the support we can get from the community. Key strategies: we have a math interventionist working with our Tier 3 students, which is outstanding. This year we have a Math 1 million goal. Last year we had a Read 100,000 goal for what we read over 120,000 books as a school. This year we're talking about minutes, so we went for 1 million reading minutes and 1 million math minutes. Strong PLC, strong reading specialists, ESL support. We have a kindness initiative this year for PBIS. Our PBIS team has really stepped up and provided some outstanding focus and recognition for students that are going above and beyond. Zones of Regulation, which is a social emotional program that gets students to self-regulate their emotions. Check in, check out, parent involvement goals. Let's see. Yep. And family and community engagement, as I said. And the rest is school data. But basically, a lot of Robinson's success is just a focus on instruction and highly talented teachers with great direction from our district and support. That what we like to talk about is instruction, and that's what I like to talk about when we walk around. I love to learn from my teachers and support them, ask them what they need to get the job done in the classroom. So, any questions?
Questions, Mr. Klett?
It's a comment. I mean, you're obviously doing a great job, so congratulations on your awards, and I hope the rest of the district can follow along and we keep going onward and upward.
We will. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Before you start, could I get a motion to extend the meeting, please?
I move to extend the meeting.
For a second? Okay. All in favor of extending the meeting?
Aye.
Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you so much.
Nope. I'm Michelle Hendricks-Nora, principal of McNeil Intermediate School, home of the Lancers. We are grades 4 through 8, approximately about 650 students and 70 staff members just going forward. This year we are on a mission. So we say we're on a mission to improve our academics, our engagement in our classrooms, and increase appropriate behaviors with our home matrix of honor, ownership, mindfulness, and engagement. Some of our strengths between math, literacy, and learning environments. Overall, one of our strengths, year and a half ago, we looped 4th and 5th grade. So we saw last year our 5th graders some strengths in their literacy and mathematics in their MAP score. So just continue to do that, get information and feedback from parents and staff in regards to looping for 4th and 5th grade. And we continue that this year as well. Also a strength is in our written research. And also for learning environment, 90% of our students were in the green or yellow zone, which like 5 or fewer referrals. We were honored as a School of Recognition for Bronze Level for PBIS Tier 1 implementation, and on our PBIS climate survey, over 90% of our students felt like we wanted them to do well, we had clear expectations and rules of behavior, and that there was a trusted adult there to help them in our building. We've made progress. We also have areas of growth that we can work on, and some of our goals are increasing our MAP goals or MAP scores from spring to spring between 3 to 5% in literacy math, and then also maintaining 85% at least of our students in our Tier 1 for PBIS using our home matrix with less referrals. Some of our key strategies that we're using is our math interventionists, reading specialists, using them more as coaches in the classroom, getting support there. School-wide, there's been a goal of organization using daily planners and focused note-taking throughout the school. We also have a focus on increased vocabulary in all grade levels and content areas, teaching vocabulary skills, how to teach it, vocabulary in the hallways, classroom. We got Quizlet, so you do that interactive using the technology with vocabulary in the classrooms, implementing social learning strategies, PLCs. We're looking to increase our recognition for staff for their contributions to create a more family work environment. As far as our learning environment, recognizing our students and staff for their attendance, grades, demonstrating positive behavior, PBIS awards, drawings, things like that. We also, as a staff, are doing a book study with engaging students with poverty in mind for all of our staff, so working through that monthly and using that within our classroom. We have a Lancer Mentor program where we utilize our 7th and 8th graders to mentor 4th and 5th graders, whether they need assistance in literacy or math or just in behavior expectations, and help them, encourage them to do the right things there. And from that, we have a Lancer advisory panel where we show them our discipline data and things like that and ask them, how do you feel in a classroom? What can we do to make things better? And how can we help you there as well? As far as family and community engagement, we do have our CLC grant, which we call the Lancer Academy at the Home of the Lancers. We're in our second year there. So we build our relationships with the Boys and Girls Club plus other community people who come in to help us with that. The week before last, we did a Proud Parents Week. So we invited parents to come in. We also have our call-outs, weekly call-outs. So we invited them to come in different grade levels. Each grade level has something like come read in class, come do math, come do volleyball and PE class, just to kind of get the parents more engaged. So we had 67 families come in for our first try, and we asked them to just give us some feedback on what is going well, what can we do for improvements here, and then would you be willing to come in to support us here at the Home of the Lancers. And then we have parents and we have our staff members each month, twice a month, fill out positive postcards to send home and phone calls. And we use like Class Dojo, Google call outs, things like that as far as our learning environment. Any questions?
Anybody have a question?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hendricks-Nora. Okay. And that concludes our school reports. So now we're on to our report from our high school student representative.
Good evening. So at the high school, the culture's been pretty positive. With Ramos's new literacy implementation, there's been a school-wide decrease of 17.7% of failures compared to last year's term 1. Personally, I've gained a lot of literacy and essay writing skills, especially pertaining to annotation. We're highlighting, underlining, reading, circling, questioning, like you name it. We're just really working hard at understanding different types of texts. The teachers are working diligently at making sure students pick up useful strategies, and that's just going really well for us, I think. 2 of BMHS's students are currently forming a parkour class at the YMCA Gymnastics Center. For those unfamiliar with parkour, it's a rapid movement sport that focuses on proficiency in beating obstacles in the quickest and most dynamic manner. They'll be teaching their first class, or they already started November 17th for ages 7 through 15. So that's going well for them. And November 2nd, earlier this month, I was able to attend the Kids Against Hunger event. We packaged 285,000 meals. There was a lot of people at that event. Everyone was really unified. There was people smiling, laughing, having fun, and it was just a great event for the community, I think. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakai. We appreciate that. Okay. Next thing on the agenda is reports from our committees, beginning with the Communication Committee. See, that would be Mr. Wilson, and I don't believe anyone's prepared to give his report. Is anyone substituting?
I attended that meeting. It was November 1st.
Thank you, Ms. Gard.
Actually, it wasn't a very long meeting, and from what I remember as we looked through a newsletter with some information and a new format that we would be using to keep the district informed about news within the district, and we talked about places where we could maybe put it online or different places within the community. And I think our meeting lasted about a half hour, so that's the report.
Thank you. And now we have the Fiscal Committee report. Ms. Gard,
That's me too.
Also be you. Thank you.
Yes. We met on November 14th, and that meeting too was a very short meeting. In that meeting, Mr. Tome presented a new format for financials for the budget for us to understand it a little better, and he will be bringing that forward for the board to look at as well. So that was the main topic for our, I think, 20-minute meeting. And that's all I have to report.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Larson, the staff committee meeting, please.
The staff committee met on November 13th, and the meeting consisted of a presentation from Tracy Shirk of Shirk Consulting as far as what a process would look like conducting third-party exit interviews going back 2 years as well as this year, and we'll be hearing more about that later on tonight.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Larson. And then Mr. Wong, student committee, please.
We met on the 13th, and I was looking for the minutes on that. Michelle, were those posted at all?
They should be under content.
On what?
I'm not seeing them.
Okay.
So I apologize. They should have been under the
Excuse me, they are, when you click on minutes, there is next to an alarm clock, view minutes.
Alarm clock. On board docs, right?
Yep, so under the agenda item details, it's meeting category subject, access type minutes, and then over to the right from minutes, it has like an alarm clock with a link that you can use to click onto the minutes.
I'm not seeing it. I am not seeing that. Let me see. Hold on. You don't have it either.
Is that on the content tab?
It's right on when you click on it on the agenda items, so right when you look at it.
So on the right side. Like underneath on the left-hand side?
Right, it's go up on top to the right.
I must not be able to see it in what I'm doing.
I'm not seeing it either. Oh, hold on.
I thought I went through and attached them all.
I see it on mine.
This side has it.
This side doesn't.
So you can pull them up on yours, Kyle? Okay.
Yes, we did meet on the 13th at 4 p.m. Okay, Devon LaRosa and then Mrs. Lathrop from the Cunningham School, they presented the Safe Bully Survey program, which was sort of a one-of-a-kind program that they've implemented at Cunningham, and it's basically to get feedback from the students on a regular basis throughout the school year as far as what students are experiencing as far as bullying goes. It's been very successful. It's been very, very well received by the students, and they're continuing this on. I think it's a great program from what I've seen and from what I've heard. Everyone seems to be very excited about it. I think they're getting some great feedback as well. Let's see, as far as what else did we have there? We had discussion about the administration of medications to students, which was just a long presentation to us, a very fast one at that as well. And then the last thing that we actually discussed was just the adjustment within the board itself and how we're changing roles as far as the liaison, kind of what the board has discussed before. And hopefully that's going to be well received, whereby David and I will be working more as liaisons, and Anthony and Emily will be working more as the board chair and the chairpersons. So I think that was well received. It was a little confusing at first, but that'll be, I think, good going forward. So that's all I had for the Students Committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Next thing on the agenda is an action item to move our December 11th meeting to December 4th and move our December 25th meeting to December 8th because of the December holidays. So if someone would like to make a motion for that, please.
I'd like to move our December 11th meeting to December 4th. I'd like to make a motion to do that, as well as make a motion to move our December 25th meeting to Tuesday, December 18th.
Is there a second?
I'll second. It shows we already have a okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to move our December 11th meeting to the 4th of December and our December 25th meeting to the 18th of December. Is there any discussion about this? Everyone in favor, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, we got this new system here that we're adjusting to tonight. So we don't vote verbally on everything now. Is it? Will it show the results?
It's coming.
Okay. Okay. Unanimously, we will move the meeting dates for December. Okay, then the next thing we would like to do is have some discussions about some items. First being building use request. Dr. Childs.
This is simply, This is simply a review of what is practice and what is policy. Your policy does call for the executive director of business services to be able to unilaterally waive fee waivers where people are wanting to use the facilities. It's also allowed without prior board action to cut fees for programs that are selling tickets by 50%. And we're bringing that to the board because there's been some discussion of, or at least concern about, whether the board ought to be approving fee waivers for everyone that comes across. Your present policy allows for the business manager, the executive director of business services, to simply do that, obviously informing the board of it. And if there is discussion in regard to whether you wish to continue that policy or change it, this would be the appropriate time to do it. Action would have to be taken at a later time.
Okay, does anyone have any thing they'd like to discuss about that? Can you tell me, I'm sorry, were you talking about also reducing, you said fees?
Organizations that want to use the facilities and are selling tickets to a particular event, the executive director of business services is authorized to reduce the fee by 50% for those organizations that are selling tickets or
Okay,
admission.
so there would not be a complete
Right.
Waiver of fees if you're selling tickets and using our facilities.
That appears to be what the policy was contemplating, yeah.
50%,
It's
okay.
actually under the rule for the policy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if anyone, go ahead, Ms. Gard.
I believe the fiscal committee could look at that policy with Mr. Tom to see what would make a reasonable wording in that policy and then bring it to the board for discussion in the future.
Okay, I think that's fine. I would tell you that the administrative recommendation is that you keep that in place and allow that to be an administrative decision and not a board decision, but you certainly could discuss that at the fiscal committee and bring your recommendation.
So the way it's written now, is my understanding, the way it's written now, the board doesn't have to vote on it.
Right.
I'm just thinking that because Mr. Tom is new and this is maybe a little different practice, that perhaps that committee can review it to see how, or if it needs to be tweaked a little bit, and if so, bring it back to the board to also review. Maybe nothing will be changed, but I think it deserves a review.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Klatt?
The intention of this was just so that the list is attached so you see who was in the buildings last month that had their fee waived. And that was always reviewed at the finance committee, and the finance committee voted on it. Policy doesn't really require them to vote
And you have 2 documents in your packet you can look at that show the organizations that have had their fees waived.
Okay. And Mr. Klett, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I have no problem with policy. This is a community-owned facility, and people in the community should have access to our schools when appropriate. The only thing I would say is if for some reason there's a strong feeling from the administration to not allow somebody into it, that maybe the board be aware that we're recommending to not use facilities for the following reasons. But other than that, I'm fine with everything the way it is.
And I think we made it clear maybe a year ago that everyone would be required to have insurance, and that's important. So,
And they can
yes.
still have the fee waived, the rental fee waived, but if it requires a custodian, they pay for a custodian.
Okay.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's really just waiving that building fee, and that's pretty much for any nonprofit organization or service organization, we're going to waive the fee.
Well, I think it's fine if, Ms. Gard, if you want to take this back to fiscal committee and just run through it real quick, but I think it's a change to what we've done in the past, and I think it's a good change, so we'll see what your committee thinks.
I know we have looked at it a little bit. Actually, it's running pretty much the way it's written, but maybe it was interpreted a little
Right.
differently, and so maybe there's a little tweaking with the words, that's all.
Right, thank you. Okay, the next discussion item is third-party exit interviews, and I'm hoping that maybe Mr. Klett, you might tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll talk.
Or you and Mr. Larson,
Yeah,
maybe.
Kyle, the chair of the committee, we've talked probably the last 3 meetings about exit interviews, staff that's left over the last 2.5 years. Going back to the time where we had the town hall meeting where there was a lot of dissension voiced by the staff on certain things. And so our discussions has really been about getting a third party to go back the last 2 years to one, do a survey of staff that has left, and then also actually do a personal phone interview to find out really what were the reasons that you left the district, and at the same time, for the next 6 months, to do exit interviews of staff that leaves between January and June. Not with the intent of pointing fingers at anybody, but is there a common theme as to why are people leaving this district? I think we've lost 50 teachers, 75 staff members, and I think 15 administration positions. And the third party, I think, would give us some credibility back to those that voice concerns within the district, that we've looked into the details, here's what we found. If there's something we need to address, we address it. And if it says, hey, this is pretty normal stuff, then it is. And so the other thing we want to make sure we do is keep it anonymous. We do want to look for patterns, but we also want to protect that anonymous part of it. So if, for example, 2 people left Robinson School, we can't say that school, the issue is Robinson School people left for the following reasons, because it's 2 people. And so we want to make sure that when we aggregate the data that we protect the integrity of the data and the people that have participated. And so we do have a proposal. I'm not prepared to present it tonight. I would want the board to see it, quite frankly. Tracy's been involved in it as well. It's also looked at that if we do this, they would work also with Tracy, because this really needs to be a united effort, not a, I don't want to come across as we're looking to point fingers, and that's the danger of that. It truly is a fact-finding as to what's been going on the last 2.5 years, that the teachers had all those concerns about what was going on. So that's basically what it is. And the person doing it would be, we looked at Tracy Shirk. She's a Beloit Memorial graduate. She has a consulting firm here in town. She was part of the HANA Camp proposal that came in when the board looked at this about a year ago. The difference being from that proposal to this proposal is there'd actually be a phone contact with each and every person versus just doing an electronic survey. So
Okay.
that's just a summary. But I would want the board to actually see the proposal. We did not vote on a committee. There's still some confusion as to Is this an administration function to approve it, or is it a board decision to approve it? I think it's a board decision, but I want to make sure that if we move forward united and for the right reasons.
Mr. Larson?
As well as collecting the data from talking to staff members who have left, they were talking about putting the staff members in 3 categories: administration, support staff, and teachers. But then that information would be used to create actionable steps to maybe correct some of things, tweak things that need to be tweaking, as well as to maybe see some things that we're doing well here. Also, when we aggregate the data, looking at whether or not staff members be rehirable, welcome back in the district, and then really emphasizing the fact that this is not a long-term exit interview process and situation, that Tracy Carradine, our Executive Director of Human Resources, would then continue and carry on the exit interviews next school year after this exit interview process is completed.
Okay, does anyone else want to talk to this? Third-party exit interview? Okay. I would just like to say that I think there's enough interest in the board to bring this back perhaps on the 18th, and you can get us the information in the meantime.
Yeah, I can tell the board that the committee was, correct me if I'm wrong, was in favor of using an independent third party.
Okay.
It was unanimous. There was anybody that said not to do it. So.
Okay. So yeah, I'd like to just see us.
But we didn't vote on it. Just so you
Right.
know, we did not vote on it committee. But it was unanimous. Everybody thought it was a good idea to move forward.
Okay. So maybe we can bring this back then in the end of December with your information on it for the board to vote. Thank you both. Okay. Now we have the discussion about Robinson School crossing hazard. Dr. Childs.
There's been a lot of discussion about the dangers around the Robinson School intersections. And basically it comes down to this. There is, I believe at Prairie, a stoplight just a block before the school, and then just 3 blocks after there's another stoplight. The city is disinclined to spend $250,000 on putting up another stop-and-go light set at that intersection. And in discussion with the police chief, he indicated that there are ways that we could certainly improve the safety around crossing in front of Robinson School, and he suggested what is effectively an electronic flashing signal that can be manually activated on either side of the street with a yellow pedestrian crossing warning sign. These are very effective. I have one 100 yards from my house, and at the middle school in Lake Mills, which gets a lot of children crossing the street, particularly walking their bicycles, and there's a lot of traffic on that street at times when people are going to work. So I know they're effective, and I think this might be a good, cost-effective move for us to make to secure better safety at Robinson with the assistance of the crossing guard and those signals. I'd suggest, and we will look into costs before we make any move to do anything, so that we can bring the board a complete report on what it would take in terms of outlay to install those electronic lights. But I know that the city would be more than willing to accommodate us in the installation and use of those, and I'd highly recommend that we look at going forward with them.
Any comments? Mr. Klatt?
I would agree with Dr. Chow. I mean, safety is our number one issue, and if we have to spend some money to ensure the safety of our children, I'm all in.
Thank you.
Mr. Larson?
I believe it's the State Line News that's there in Cranston, right by Robinson, where Voight Music used to be. And I actually just noticed going east on Cranston, on their sign, they have entering school zone, please be alert. So we are getting some help from businesses in the area.
That'll help too.
That's nice. Mr. Wong.
I would agree. Safety is the number one issue here. I was driving down there the other day when school was letting out, and the traffic, the poor drivers, there needs to be, it's very poorly lit at this point in time, especially coming from the Prairie side. So I think flashing lights would be very, very helpful.
I was recently in another state that uses this system, and to me, it's more noticeable than a red light. So I'd like to see us definitely proceed with this. We don't want to wait for an accident. We want to do it before. So, yeah, I guess at the next meeting we can vote on this.
Sure, we'll have it as an
meeting.
action item, and in the meantime, I'll ask Mr. Winters to get into the business of looking at costs and installation times and issues.
Okay. All right. Are there any future agenda items anyone would like to suggest right now for future board meetings? Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on and I'll announce the future meeting dates for December. The Communication Committee is meeting December 6th at 4:30 p.m. at the high school in the cafeteria. The Infrastructure Committee is meeting Thursday, December 6th at 5 o'clock p.m. It says also at the high school cafeteria. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but those are a half hour apart.
Given the number of areas available at the high school and the cafeteria and lunch and dining areas, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Okay. Student Committee is meeting Tuesday, December 11th, 4 o'clock here at the Collex Center. And the Fiscal Committee is meeting Wednesday, December 12th, 5 o'clock p.m. at the Collex Center. Board meetings, as we voted on tonight, will be December 4th, 5 o'clock p.m., special meeting, and a business meeting Tuesday, December 18th, 7 o'clock p.m. There's also some ad hoc committee meetings that you might want to, I don't think they're completely settled yet for time, but the one that was discussed tonight, ad hoc committee is working on revising our code of conduct. Is the title of it the ad hoc student governments?
Student Discipline and Governance.
Student Discipline and Governance Committee. And if anyone's interested in attending that, you can go online to the district's website and look for the agenda and meeting times for that. I'm sure a lot of people will have an interest in that committee. Okay. I just want to thank everyone for being patient with us while we get used to this new system we're using tonight. A couple little glitches as we look for things, but it's called Board Docs, and it's the new system that runs our meetings. Hopefully everyone at home could see that we had the agenda going on the television when we voted. The results of the vote, the motion came up and the results of the vote came up. So hopefully that was all clearly visible for people watching at home. And with that, I think we're ready to adjourn.
You may want to adjourn back into closed session. There were other items you wanted to talk about.
Well, we recessed from closed session. We'll be returning there, but we're going to adjourn this meeting and return to our closed session meeting. Someone has a motion. Oh, Ms. Gard, one more comment?
Yeah, on our agenda, it is mentioned in, you can watch the board business meeting live on Charter PEG Channel 96 or Digital Channel 991. And meetings are rebroadcast through the month on Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and every day at 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. You can also watch the rebroadcast at your convenience on our Board of Education website. So I just thought maybe with
Thank
the
you,
new...
Ms. Gard. And you know what? I also want, I'm going to say this, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but citizens can also go on our website, go onto Board Docs, and see everything that we had to vote on tonight, correct? Everything that was presented. Okay. You go to the agenda for that meeting, go to the meeting, go to the agenda, and then there's little icons next to agenda items that have materials accompanying that item, right? Okay.
Click on the item, the whole right side opens up with all the information and
Okay, so that's new for people that are out there watching this and that follow along and look for information on our website. So, yeah, board docs is where you find it. Call the district office at 361-4000 if you have a hard time finding it, and someone will help you through that. Okay, now a motion to adjourn, please.
I move to adjourn.
Okay,
I
is there a
second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.